we're going to assume that this unit has been pre-wiped. Let's say we were just here before lunch. It's only been sitting a half hour, so it's clean enough to just start barriering and bring your patient back. So in order to set up the room to bring your patient back, some of the frequently touched areas we like to cover with plastic barriers because it just makes it easier for disinfection and wiping at the end. So one of the most commonly used barriers is barrier tape. We're going to tape all the surfaces that we have that are high touch surfaces. So for example, the light. One thing to remember when you are putting barrier tape on the handles is to give yourself a little bit of a lip here with the barrier tape because it will make it easier to take off. Because sometimes when it like grips onto itself, it's like like a war to get it off. So you'll put that on like this, and then bring it out, let them kind of kiss together. Same thing on the other side. And again, this would be a clean gown. So it's not like I'm touching this to patient blood or patient saliva that was on this gown. So these are two high touch areas we'll put on here so that when the operator was to grab, it needs to be double-sided because even though you might have a dentist on this side, you guys might be doing the light for the dentist, so you might have to grab it on this side too. We're also going to barrier the on-off switch. Same thing here. And then I'm just going to kind of put it on the switch like you would grab it, like that. Okay, so this is the how you would barrier the lamp. My office also puts barriers on the handles of the unit. So we get two, and we lay it like that, tuck it under, because typically people put their fingernails under, they grasp around, so we usually do two in my office. Grasp under. And then when you were operating on the stools, one of the frequently touched areas is this, when you would move your stool. So you typically barrier here. And then if you're adjusting the up and down, we probably won't do the bottom one because that adjusts here. So we'll just do this one with the lines. Same thing, give yourself a lip and then put it over there so that if the dentist were to grab or move it during the procedure, it's covered. There's so many little nooks and crannies inside there, it would be really hard to spray and wipe because there's so many little nooks and crannies. Same thing on your stool. Let's say if you want to move your stool up and down, give yourself a little lip as well, and same thing. And then also for your stool, actually we'll cover the whole bar with the chair cover instead, so we won't put this on there, okay? We'll cover the whole bar with that. The next thing to use barrier tape for is the handle on the delivery unit. This whole thing is called the delivery unit. That's something that a lot of people touch. And of course we wouldn't grab here if there's sharp instruments or something, so we're going to put a little barrier on here too. And again, let's put it bilaterally because what if you're grabbing it? And then what if the dentist is grabbing it too? So you and the operator might want to grab it. So it should be barriered bilaterally on here. If the unit is already on and you're leaving it on, you don't have to worry about barriering the on-off switch. But if it's something where you know you're going to turn it on and off during the procedure, you would barrier the on-off switch too. But for our purposes, we'll say it's already on, and it would stay on all day. And that, let's say at the end of the day, you would turn it off with a clean hand. It's not contaminated. That's okay. And more high surface areas that would be touched are back here. But instead of wasting and wrapping tape on the whole thing, we're going to use a chair sleeve for that. So that looks like this. And this actually, at the end of your appointment, will double as your trash bag. So stay tuned. What this also does is barriers here. So if you were to use the chair controls to operate the chair from here, you're barriered. But there's another way to operate the chair too, and that's your foot pedal. So it just depends on what your dentist and yourself prefer. So that's how you would barrier this. Your individual pieces here, I'm going to bring my tray over and we're going to barrier these pieces as well. Let me grab gloves for that.
Such a bad photographer in everybody's way.
grab my instruments. Let's say you have a room with a bunch of these already set up. This goes into your room. This is, oh sorry, I didn't barrier here. You guys need a barrier on this as well. Okay, this is a barrier. This is a form of infection control. So this is something that you would put here that gets switched out every patient. And then of course you would still need to wipe this. I mean, when I'm gonna wipe the unit, you'll see we're gonna wipe that as well, but this is so that the spit goes through this little paper and goes right down. And again, it's all about eliminating the bacteria in those little nooks and crannies that are really hard to clean. So we like to cover the little nooks and crannies. Your saliva ejector will go inside here. And now if you can imagine, this is a lot of little nooks and crannies to put a lot of bacteria. So an easy way to keep this nice and protected is an air-water syringe cover. Typically they have slits. If they don't, just rip it through. Get off that little piece. There you go. So now that's protected. And then we would do the same thing for the HBE as well. Next up is your air-water syringe. Same thing. Look at all these little nooks and crannies. I mean, it is literally impossible to, you can't clean this with a wipe. I mean, there will still be, like in the court of law, you could still swab underneath here and get germs that are caught underneath it. So it is recommended to also use a cover, an air-water syringe cover or a saliva ejector cover, whatever you want to call it. But that's just how they work. So it stays on, and you can still operate your water and your air. The little emojis here tell you which one's good. When you would put hand pieces on here, we wouldn't barrier those because the hand pieces get sterilized. So just so you know, these two pieces just get left like this because the hand piece will go right on here. That's really what's being touched, and that gets sterilized. That goes in the mouth, okay? So as far as infection control on the unit and barriers, the unit is ready for the patient to be brought back and seated because everything here is already nice and clean. So right now we're ready to seat our patient.